Shalom, shalom. First off, I'd like to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakal Kadash, and shalom to my elders of GMS who told me this truth, and shalom to you brothers that scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, preaching His gospel, preaching His word, risking your lives to do so. Shalom to you brothers. And I just I don't know. I was just through the spirit. I was just scrolling online, whatever, and I had seen this article, and it's I just put in Saint Nicholas the Black Man, and this article came up, and it tells you the real story of Saint Nicholas and where they got that whole depiction from of Santa Claus and shit, and this whole pagan holiday and everything like that, and made the Saint Nicholas, who was a black man of Moorish descent, into an Edomite man, going out on a fucking with some reindeers and shit, whatever, giving out gifts and shit, going through the chimney and all that bullshit. You know what I mean? And they don't, they hide this, they hide all this, they hide all the facts, and you know what I mean? And now I'm just getting into it. I'm gonna just read the article, and this is what he would look like back in like I want to say like 320 AD. This is the image of what Saint Nicholas would have looked like back then. What they would call him swarty. That means dark skin or brown or whatever. And he had woolly hair, beard, and everything like that. Back then. You know what I mean? And so I'm gonna just read the article, and Lord willing, just be edifying. Get some scriptures, and Lord willing, just be edifying. So I'm gonna scroll down this bunch of fluff shit, whatever. So I'm gonna skip all that, and I'm just getting into the actual story. It says, all right, who is the real Saint Nicholas? Nicholas was probably born during the 3rd century in the village of Batara, in what is now the southern coast of Turkey. He was born of very wealthy ethnic black Anatolians. Salagi if I'm butchering the names. Of the ancient Roman Empire. He was one of those ancient and dominant black Moors of Europe that you only fleetingly come across in today's Western history, because the Gothic Europeans would hide the true Moorish history in Europe. Right, we had Moors, there was Moors scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, especially over there in that part of Europe and Turkey, and they were in Italy, the southern part of Italy, and all through France, all through Europe. Yeah, they were everywhere, and they tried to hide this history because it's this whole white supremacy ideology of keeping everything white and white, doing this and white that, white this, white that, and make putting them in the light, you know what I mean, so to speak. So it says Saint Nicholas. Nicholas' wealthy parents died in an epidemic while Nicholas was still young. Being a devout Christian, he followed the words of Jesus, who they ignorantly call Jesus. His name is Yahushai, to sell what you own and give the money to the poor. Nicholas used his whole inheritance to assist the needy, the sick, and the suffering. He was made the bishop of Myra while still a young man. The high office of Nicholas at such a young age speaks to the dominant role played by Moorish black Anatolians and Africans in creating the church as we know it today. It is a historical fact that most of the early and very famous bishops of the church who lived and gave their lives for the church were either Moorish Africans or Moorish diaspora. Right. Like I said, it was Moorish Africans and those Moorish diaspora all over Europe, all over the continent. The different countries and everything like that. We were everywhere. But they hide all this shit. They hide all this. So it says Saint Peter, the icon Peter, the first apostle depicted as a Moorish black man in Rome, the Archbishop John Chrysostom, Pope Leo the Great, 400 to 469 AD, Pope Midheliades, sorry, it's a lot, Bishops of Rome, St. Peter, the Bishop of Alexandria, 300 to 311 AD, and innumerable saints and martyrs were all Moorish people of African descent. You know, basically they were Israelites who converted to Moorishism, and that whole, you know, I believe they were also like Muslim or whatever, if I'm not mistaken. They called themselves Moors, but they practice Islam, if I'm not mistaken. And John Chrysostom, generosity of St. Nicholas. Bishop Nicholas was known throughout the land for his generosity to those in need, his love for children, and his concern for sailors and ships. Under the Roman Emperor Diocletian, Bishop Nicholas suffered for his faith, was exiled and imprisoned. Yeah, so they purchased Jake back. They persecuted Jake for having a belief and having faith in the Most High, whatever, and they persecuted us for that, and doing good and being showing generosity towards people, whatever. Like they frowned upon that, you know what I mean? Especially not so much just that, but just his faith alone. That's what they persecute him for, and after his release, Nicholas attended the Council of Nicaea in AD 325, where he worked with other early fathers of the church to establish the standardized Christian doctrine of today, the passing of the real Santa Claus. He died December 6, AD 343 in Myra, and was buried in his cathedral. I can't select. Bear with me. Cathedral church, where a unique relic called manna formed in his grave. All right. The discovery of this liquid substance, which was said to have healing powers, fostered the growth of devotion to Nicholas. The anniversary of his death became a day of celebration, St. Nicholas Day, December 6th to December 19th on the Julian calendar. The fake snowflakes they call Santa Claus. Okay, it says today the Western pagan descendants of the Gothic and Slavic conquerors of Rome and Christianity have built up an idolatrous image of Odin, the god of the god of the Goths and the Norsemen, and have passed it off as the real Saint Nicholas. The real Saint Nicholas. The modern joke of Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus. This image of the Gothic idol Odin is what is passed off around the world as Santa Claus, but for those who have ears and eyes, Odin, the pagan god of the gods, had nothing to do with and nothing in common with the pious and devoted life of Saint Nicholas, the young Moorish bishop of Myra, one of the early fathers of the church. So they created this idol named Odin, and and passed and it translated into the whole Santa Claus thing. You know what I mean? And like I said, it had nothing to do with the actual Saint Nicholas, who was a Moorish, who they would call African descent, but we know he was an Israelite. You know what I mean? And the Odin, idol is what we get Santa Claus from. You know what I mean? That's the whole origins of it. And you had these Goths and these was it the I just read it. The Goths and let me go up. The Goths and the Slavic conquerors and the Norsemen. This is what they idolize. This is what they worship and shit. You know what I mean? And and this is what they hid from us. This is what they took out of the history. These devils, they just lied. They lied back then, and they just kept the lie going all the way up until this day. You know what I mean? That's why, the prophets and the men of the Lord, whatever, we out here preaching God, preaching His word to the best of our ability, and we're going to bring the facts out, you know what I mean? Through the Spirit of the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, These people are fucking liars, man. This fucking Edomite devils and these people, these historians and shit like that, whatever, they all fucking devils at the end of the day, And then I'm going to get Job 9 and 24. Holy Bagudi. Job 9. Salak. Um, all right, so Job 9:24. So Job 9:24. The earth is given unto the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? That's right. You know, he was given the earth. You know what I mean? He's the wicked, and you know, they cover up the faces of the judges thereof. They cover up the prophets. You know, the prophets that, you know, that showed black images, and showed the prophets being, you know, swarthy people, being dark skinned. You know what I mean? They covered those images up and made them white. You know what I mean? And that was false. That's false as hell. You know. And you know, and took the credit, whatever, and you know, and like I said, put themselves in that light. You know what I mean? You know, glorified themselves as being the prophets and being the Saint Nicholases and you know, all these, you know, great people. You know, especially men of the scriptures. You know, the prophets. You know, and turning them all white and shit. You know, but this is what they do. This is the devil. You know. Cesare Borgia, and how they use his image to show the image, you know what I mean, to replace the true image of Yahushua, and had the image of an Edomite, calling him Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? This is what this devil's a goddamn liar. This is what he is. You know, at the end of the day, you know, their wickedness, you know. Their sins and their wickedness, it goes up into the heavens, man. It's just so much shit they did, you know, all the way up, all the way back then, you know what I mean, in the scriptures and everything, and all the way up until now, you know. So I just wanted to bring a little history on that, you know, and Lord willing, I hope this was edifying. Until next time, Shalom.